we tried to recruit people straight out of school, and one kid basically sat on his phone, held it up like was gaming, and I was like, "Have you got enough work to do? Do you need more work?" He's like, "No, I've got loads to do." I was like, "Okay." He's still sat gaming, and I was like, "Oh my God, what do I even say without losing my head? How do I tell him that's not normal?"
In this episode, Youtopia co-founder David Adderson shares his inspiring journey from a reluctant accountancy employee to a forward-thinking entrepreneur. We discuss how AI will revolutionise the accounting industry and just how hard it is to start an accountancy business from scratch. Now let's head over to the podcast. Today, I'm pleased to have David Adderson on the We Built This Business podcast talking about Youtopia, an accountancy practice. David, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thank you for having me.
So David, you're our first accountancy practice on the podcast, so I'm looking forward to learning how you've built your business. But if we could just start by talking about what Youtopia is today, the size of the business, and what primarily you do.
I guess we need to go back a little bit. So I worked in industry, and with my business partner, she worked in industry before. We both have always said we'd never work for an accountancy practice and we wouldn't ever enjoy it. Fast forward a few years, both of us ended up working for the same accountancy practice and didn't enjoy it. It was kind of very compliance focused. It was giving people tax returns on their deadlines, and that's not what we enjoyed. That's not what we wanted to do. That's not where we wanted to go. So we looked at using the cloud software that was coming out, so Xero, and looking at giving clients actual financial information, or from a financial director or a CFO, or what industry gets and small business doesn't. That's kind of what we wanted to focus on and what we wanted to build. So we went away, we kind of did lots of research, we built all our systems, we've got everything set up in place, and we launched our accountancy practice as the two of us. Well, technically it was three of us at the beginning, but the other shareholder, he owned the previous practice, and it was kind of a conflict of interest for him to put work to us when he owns a practice over here. So it makes more sense for him to kind of continue with his. So we kind of bought him out and we chose to go our separate ways. We still get on, still got a lot of time for him, and he was great to kind of teach us, but it didn't work out with that. So we kind of built ours as more than just the accountant. We are kind of the full finance department, and the CFO, the finance director, sat on the side of your business.
So essentially what you provide is, like you're saying, so big business solution for small businesses.
Yeah, exactly that. And it just taking away that full finance stress. So anything that you're because a lot of people, when it comes to finance, they just stress and switch off. So we've decided, actually, let us just take away all of it. Let us do the whole process from start to finish. And if you need to know the numbers, you need to know anything, you talk to us, you call us. We're always here, we're always available. But we're not just doing your tax at the end of the year. We're that business coach, that business support, that finance part of your company.
I said I've looked a lot into Youtopia over the last kind of couple of days, just before this interview, and yeah, I love the way you do things. It's slightly different to kind of the industry norms, and I really want to get into that. But first, let's go back to, so obviously you talked about not wanting to work for an accountancy practice. So did you train as an accountant, I imagine, in the beginning? So how did that journey transition from there to actually working in an accountancy practice?
I guess, yeah, I actually went to, from school, I didn't know what I wanted to do. Went to sixth form because that's what you got told to do. Dropped out after a year, didn't enjoy it. Went and did AAT at college, which is the accountancy qualification. So I did that at college, passed all of that. Then you almost kind of have a few pillars to go into in accounts. So you have kind of industry and you have practice, and then in each of them you have different kind of areas. So you've got like purchase ledger, sales ledger, and I ended up really struggling to find a job. And then there was an incredible lady who kind of gave me a minimum wage job in finance, for a manufacturing company, it was incredible because I only did finance for about 2 months. So it was almost like these management schemes that are around now, or the apprenticeship schemes that are around now, where I kind of went in and I did a month in each department, which gave me kind of huge knowledge. My biggest focus was software technology. I'm big on gadgets. I'm big into that area. So I spent quite a lot of time making sure it was a system called Chaos Control at the time, but making sure that their financial system was all working from start to finish. So goods in, picking and packing, right through to the buyer, the marketing team. I even went out with a sales team. Like, it was an incredible experience. And then I spent quite a bit of time actually with a customer service team.
How old were you at this stage?
I think I was about 19.
How did you decide that from, so you've had an experience in, like you said, multiple areas within that business. How did you decide, being a person that's into gadgets and technology, to not go into IT, but to go into finance?
I think because this company was still quite small, IT tends to be outsourced still at this point. So they didn't have anyone in IT, whereas finance was the only internal software that everyone kind of used. Other than that, everything was paper-based. I think, to be fair, they had a job going for picking and packing in the warehouse, and I said, I want to apply for it. I want to go for it. It's paying double what I'm getting at the moment. And she told me there's no chance she won't give me the job, which I'm incredibly grateful for now. But at the time, I thought that was kind of her stopping me or stunting me and stopping me earning money, and I just wanted to earn more money. What I've realised now is that would have stunted my career and it would have changed everything. So I guess it's more, I don't really know exactly what it is. I guess money is all, I've always been good at maths. I've always kind of been quite good at focusing on money. And I mean, as a kid growing up playing like video games and stuff like that, GTA, I was the one that always used to try and run it like a business and make money on all the games. Whereas my friends had just run around blowing things up or doing whatever it is that they do on these games. So I was always the one kind of looking at it from a business point of view. How can we make more money in the game and get further? So I think it's just kind of always been an excitement. And my dad was a farmer and my mum was self-employed. So I guess I've kind of been surrounded by small business owners all my life.
So obviously she hasn't given you the job, as obviously you want to go into the packing picking. I'm assuming you stay in finance. You stay in that finance role. How long do you stay there for?
So I stayed there for about 2 years, but in finance I was probably only there for about 3 months. So I was doing customer service for a lot of it because the customer service manager went off sick, so they wanted somebody else to kind of sit in there. And I knew, it's really sad, I kind of knew all the stock numbers and I knew how every part of the business functioned. So actually I could support in majority of the questions. And then, after 2 years, I decided that I needed more minimum wage. It was basically covering the cost of my car and the petrol to get there, as well as a few nights out that I was doing a week. So then I moved to another company where I was the only person in finance. It was a small company. And I remember the interview, he said, "You're the wild card. I've got 3 other people that I've interviewed that have experience, qualifications, everything. You're kind of the wild card. You have nothing, and you're kind of quite young because you've not got the finance experience or anything like that." Luckily, he saw something in it and gave me the job, which was great. I was then I'd argue like a bookkeeper at the time. We had like an external accountant, and I was doing all of the internal books for them, staying on top of everything, keeping everything tidy. That was great fun for a while, and then it kind of got quite boring. It got quite samey, and I moved on to accountancy practice, which was where I worked for a couple of years before deciding actually that wasn't enjoyable. That was too stressful. It was too much going on, and giving people a tax return at the end of the year wasn't fun.
And was that the main driver behind it not being fun, was the fact that you didn't have the interaction with the companies to like really get involved with what they were doing more? You were just, like you say, processing their finances at the end of the year and just giving them the returns?
Yeah. So when I was there, my boss at the time, she was doing management accounts, and for whatever reasons, we didn't really sell many management accounts. It wasn't really a thing, and people didn't really want it. But it always fascinated me, like, wow, they're getting these packs of information that's P&L, balance sheets, telling them what's going on, how their business is performing, where they can improve, what they can do. And that always excited me. Like being able to help these businesses grow, change, manage whatever situation they're in, and giving them that information always fascinates me. And I guess it comes back to, like, when I was a kid, I wanted to make a business. I wanted to run a business or make it work. And if you're kind of like the CFO, you're not necessarily the owner, but you're up there, you're making them decisions, you're giving all of the information, and you're being heard. So that's what excited me the most, is being able to help these businesses thrive.
Been able to make a difference, isn't it? Someone said to me once about management accounts is you've got 12 opportunities a year to change your business.
Yeah,
and
exactly that.
I think that's one of the most powerful parts of, like you say, being able to make a difference to that business.
Yeah. I mean, if you're getting end of year accounts, you're realistically getting told about something 18 months after it's happened, potentially, because you've had the 12 months of the year and then 9 months before it needs to be filed. So you're looking at it 18 months too late. And by then, I mean, a small business can have closed down within months, let alone 18 months. So you need to know that information fairly early on in the following month. The end of September, you need to know that by sort of the 10th, 15th of October at the very latest, to be able to make them decisions and changes. Because small businesses are so agile, there's so much that's happening at all times. You need to be able to monitor that regularly, and you need to be able to know what works and what doesn't.
So how did you decide to leave that business practice? What was the tipping point?
So I think whilst I was there, I put in cloud software. I was pushing quite a lot to move to the cloud, to do all these different things, to streamline everything. And there were a lot of people that were stereotypical accountants that were happy with the paper processes, and it used to frustrate me quite a lot. So what happened is we almost agreed to do a kind of branch off of the business and set that up as a separate thing entirely. So we had like the traditional practice and we had the cloud practice, but that partner, in my opinion at the time, was quite traditional. So he struggled to move to the cloud, which meant that the two businesses moved further and further apart, and we were producing management accounts, we were looking for it, we were going through the numbers, the two of us. And then, so it was almost like it was always happening. He was kind of on board with it. And then we said that it's not working because we need clients in. And at the moment, you're doing two quotes for people, one being slightly more expensive, which is ours, and one being undercut, which is the traditional one. So it just doesn't make any sense for anybody to choose ours. So it was, I said to my business partner, Catherine, I said, I think it was September, I said, like, we'll wait till the end of January. On the 1st of February, I'm going to leave the company and I'm going to go for it full time on my own. If I can get this to work, we will bring you across. As soon as we've got the money in, we'll bring you across.
What year was this? Sorry, so I'm just trying to understand where we are in time at the moment.
So this was around 2018. So I just bought my first house as well with my partner in the August. This September, I decided I was quitting my job. And then I think it was literally a week later, I'd said this to Catherine. I said, look, this is the plan. This is how it's going to work. I think a week later, she said, absolutely not. If you're going, I'm coming with you. And I said, we've got no clients. We've got no money. We're going to struggle to make this work. And she said, fine. From now till January, we're going to be putting money into it. And we're going to be building up a buffer from both of our salaries. So then when we do move across, we've got something. And that February we both left. We waited till the end of January because traditional practices are hectic in January and things like that. So we said we'd do that. And then 1st of February we left. I fell ill and was ill for 2-3 weeks, which is probably the longest I've ever been ill for. Literally the day we went self-employed.
Wow. Not ideal.
No. So that's kind of how it started, I guess.
And so you've just started the business. How do you go about kind of getting your first customers to Youtopia?
So we were really trying not to take anyone from the previous practice. Again, we were trying to kind of be as clean as possible, and we're going to start up on our own. How did we go about it? It was a lot of talking to people. We were trying to desperately get out there. We spoke to as many people as we could. We went to all these different networking groups, and we really struggled. It was really hard because we had nothing. Like, we had no experience, we had no trust built, we'd never done any networking, we'd never built up a client base or anything like that. So we were literally starting fresh. And it got to a point actually where we and Catherine sat down, we said, look, this is really struggling. We either need to take finance or do something here because we're running out of money again. And at this point, I think I was earning about 500 quid a month, which was just covering my mortgage payments at the time. So what we both ended up doing was we actually applied for jobs as bookkeepers. And then when I was at the job interview, I said, look, we can do this, but I can do it as a practice as well. Like, you don't need to pay me a salary. Actually, you can pay half the price and we'll put it through our company. And luckily, I think we got 2 jobs in the end from that, which was huge because that meant that it was covering then some of our costs. And it meant that I was able to pay myself 500 quid a month, which is incredible. And Catherine as well, she went for a few job interviews like that. But it was incredibly hard because I think accountancy is built on trust, and nobody trusted us at the beginning because they didn't know us. And we
also
did.
I imagine with accountancies as well, it's not a jump ship kind of industry where you suddenly go, tomorrow I'm going to change my accountant and then start with them on Monday. It takes time, doesn't it, to build that pipeline?
Yeah, absolutely. I think now it's taking us about 3 to 6 months, depending on the size of the client, to move people across once they've engaged with us in the first place. So then you've got the lead time before that, where you're trying to kind of build that trust before they even approach you. You're talking probably a year to get a client. So it was really quite tough at the time to find work, and we did all these networking. Everybody tells you, do these networking, do this, do that, and we did it all. I went to every group, every event, everything I could, and it was still really tough. It was actually, we went to the NatWest Entrepreneurs Hub, which was great. It kind of gave us a free place to go and work. It made us kind of get outside of our comfort zone, and there was a room full of about 70 different business owners, so it worked perfectly. However, we didn't get any clients from that at first. It took months after that.
So that was down to the trust element as well, and also the time it takes to acquire a client.
Yeah.
What would you say if you were out there and you were looking to start a new accountancy practice, using the experience that you had in 2018, what would you recommend for someone that was looking to leave their current accountancy practice and start as a new accountant?
Good luck. I would recommend finding a practice that you can buy into, or you can kind of bolt onto, or do it that way, because if they've already got a brand, they've already got a business, it's a lot easier because they've got a starting point. When you're starting out on your own, it's really tough. It's a long-term thing. It takes a huge amount of time. So it's just keep knocking on them doors, keep talking to people, keep asking questions. And I guess I used to get quite nervous about, am I pestering people too much? Am I doing too much? Forget that. Nobody is there. Nobody is wanting to help you. Nobody is going to do it for you. You've got to keep pestering until you get told no. Keep going. Because I think I also fell into the part where friends and family, you expect friends and family to jump in and help. But they don't. They're not they're too busy doing their thing. And actually, I think I had a few family members that were businesses and things like that, and I went to them and I said, look, I can help you do this, I can help you do that, and they didn't want to know. So that was almost like, okay, I don't understand this. Like, why? What have I done wrong here? Maybe it's not working. Maybe I need to stop. I remember there was this one morning, actually, me and Catherine, we were going to London for an expo. We had no money in the bank. It was December. It was raining. It was cold. We're still at this train station, 6 o'clock in the morning. It's dark, and we're both saying, is this going to work? Do we need to just go and get a job? And one of the potential clients that we'd spoken to was stood on the train station, and she came over to us and she said, yeah, I'm going to sign up tonight. I just wanted to go through a few things. Are you happy with me doing it? And we'll sign all the documents tonight and I'll send them all across to you. And it was like, wow, okay, no, this is going to work. And I think we've had 3 or 4 of them moments where we've gone, this is really tough. We're not earning enough money to kind of make it work. Do we give up? And it's something, a client has come back and gone, yeah, let's sign up. Let's do that now. So that bookkeeping client was, again, that another moment where it was like, I need to go and get a job. And then they said, no, we'll sign up for your company. And it was like, wow, no, something is telling us it's going to work.
It's almost like that keep going moment, when you just have almost like a eureka moment when you have an idea for a business. You have the thought process that you're going to close it down, and then something comes around that just goes, keep going.
Yeah, there is definitely something that's kind of going, you can do this, keep going, you're doing all the right things. It's just keep plugging, because I guess also the industry is people don't move. Most people stay with their accountants for 10 plus years. So trying to drag people away from their accountants because I've just started up is really tough. So I guess coming back to your question then, what advice would I give to someone is just keep going and talk to other accountants. Ask them, because also bigger accountants have a few clients that they'd probably happily part with because of fees aren't high enough, there's stuff going on, they want a different service or something like that. Speak to them.
Yeah, that's good advice, because I think with every business, the biggest challenge is getting the doors open and getting people in. That especially when you're starting from zero, and there is many challenges when you first open up. But yeah, if you can solve that problem, like you say, by going to other accountants, trying to get some of their business they're not looking for anymore, and they get a kickback or however they do it, it's a great way to start. So once you've kind of got over that keep going moment, when did you kind of take on your first employee and you think, you know what, this is actually going to work?
So this was 2020. Was it 2020 when COVID hit?
Certainly was, March 2020.
Yeah, so we were, funnily enough, I agreed to rent an office in January 2020, ready to move in July 2020, and we had all this going on, and it was like, yeah, COVID's a thing, but it's not going to shut down businesses, is it? The world still has to function. It's never going to be a problem. And we kind of rented this space, we agreed to it, and then we got a member of staff in that March, just before COVID. So we onboarded them remotely, and I remember driving to her house. I went and bought an office chair, I bought a laptop, I bought a new monitor for her, I drove to her house, I put it all on the doorstep, come away from the doorstep and knocked on the door, and then I was talking to her across her driveway, onboarding this new member of staff that we'd decided to kind of go for, which possibly wasn't right to do at the time. I think we were probably a bit too early before recruiting, but what I wanted to do, or what we were trying to do, was recruit somebody to train up, to be trained, ready for when we needed them. But from a cash flow point of view, it was really difficult. So I'd say this is where it's worked extremely well with me and my business partner, is because I would recruit 5 people, bring them in, have them ready for when the work comes in. She wouldn't recruit anybody until she was snowed under and she had all the cash available to bring one person in. So what we end up doing is finding this middle ground where we've got enough for them to do, but also we're not quite there yet. And I think that was what we learned after that first employee.
It was essentially the balance between when to recruit and when not to recruit, essentially, which is one of the hardest, is supply versus demand, isn't it? That's always the problem. You've got to create the work for someone when they come in, but at the same time, if you don't have the people, you can't deliver the work necessarily for the client. So it's chicken and egg, isn't it, always?
Yeah, exactly that. And it was really tough. And I think actually at the time she was earning a similar wage to us. So it was almost like we're paying her a good amount, or what we saw as a good amount of money at the time, because we were earning quite a small amount, and she wasn't able to do a lot. So it was like, this is really tough. But I mean, it all kind of eventually worked out, and we eventually moved into the office when COVID stopped.
Are you still at the office now?
So we've moved to a new office now. So a slightly different office, but we're 2 miles down the road, and we've slightly bigger office with more staff.
Talking about staff and recruitment and that side of things, have you ever recruited too early or recruited the wrong type of person before?
Yes, absolutely. We've had quite a few different people. We've tried to recruit people straight out of school, and one kid basically sat on his phone, held it up like was gaming, and I was like, "Have you got enough work to do? Do you need more work?" He's like, "No, I've got loads to do." I was like, "Okay." He still sat gaming, and I was like, "Oh my God, what do I even say without losing my head? How do I tell him that's not normal?" But it turns out his mum actually wrote his CV. His mum did all his job applications. His mum got him the job. And it was, we were doing, I think it was a Kickstart scheme at the time. So it was almost done through like, okay, we'll just kind of go through. We'll get the first kid that comes along and that wants it, and we'll push them through. And we learned we certainly would interview everyone, no matter what. Like, I don't want somebody to come in, sit there on their phone gaming whilst they're supposed to be working and things like that. We have recruited through recruiters. We've kind of had somebody who was run their own practice. They were fully qualified, and then they really struggled to do day-to-day bookkeeping. They were a traditional accountant, but they couldn't stay on top of their work, and they were getting into an awful mess. So we had to kind of part ways with them, and that was probably quite an expensive mistake because recruitment costs were added on top. I think the most successful campaign I did was I decided to add everybody on LinkedIn, because most accountants are on LinkedIn. So I kind of went through LinkedIn. I added as many accountants as I could on there, AAT trainees, anybody who was training to do accounts. And I then did a big campaign, like a "We Want You" poster. I posted it on LinkedIn. I sent it to all these different networking groups that I spoke to, and we got quite a lot of people interviewing for that, which was incredible. We ended up getting, we hired 2 members of staff there. We were only looking for 1, but there were 2. And funnily enough, they're both still with us now, which is great. So we almost changed our views. So we decided that we weren't going to hire on what they could do and what their qualifications were, because that we already proved that failed with 1 person. We didn't want somebody who had the wrong attitude and was going to sit on their phone. So we were looking for people with the right attitude, people that wanted to learn, people that wanted more than just a salary and to kind of get by and a job. So it was people who had the communication skills that could, which is really hard to do in our industry, because I don't know if you've spoken to many accountants. They're not really that talkative. They're not really that outgoing. They're very kind of, they'll sit down, they'll do the work, they'll crunch all their numbers, and they'll do that bit.
They're mostly introverts, aren't they, unfortunately? So they're not going to be extrovert and, talking and shouting and doing all sorts of loud things. They tend to want to not do that, essentially.
Yeah. They want to sit in the background. They want to just kind of crash through the numbers, give you all the numbers that you've got, and be very kind of specific with it all. But we're trying to look for, so we also do like a presentation in it, which I'd say is probably something that accountants don't do in the interview, is that presentation and that side of it. And it was, could we sit and have a coffee with them? We met in a coffee shop. It was very much kind of like a chat, and can we chat with them? So I'd say that is now our process is, are they able to talk? Are they able to be a client manager? And I guess us as a business, our biggest focus is almost customer service. So it's making sure we are making life easier for everyone, all our clients. So we focus heavily on how we make the clients feel, the communication, and all of that piece. So that's what we're looking for. Accounts, bookkeeping, payroll, you can teach that. That's a process. And actually AI can do that, but we won't talk about that yet.
Yeah. I'll say, yeah, we'll probably come on to AI in a minute. One of your biggest challenges was to do with communication of your services. How have you kind of overcome that challenge, or how are you still trying to overcome that?
Painfully. Because a lot of people, when I say the word accountant, most people kind of switch off, kind of go, right, I know what that is. That's you talking to me at the end of the year. You're telling me I owe loads of tax, and that's it. The biggest thing is almost changing people's view to be that accountants can give you so much more. Like, I'm very fortunate. I get to speak to 75 business owners every month, and I get to ask them what's working, what's not, what to improve, where to go, what other clients are doing, what softwares are working, what, these other 74 businesses are doing really well. Try doing that, because at the moment that's working. And with things like COVID, everything is changing drastically really quickly. So you've got to be able to move like that. And if we can see what's working for other people, we can kind of keep all of our clients moving really well. So that's probably one of the hardest challenges we have, is breaking that mold of we are a stereotypical accountant, so we can do so much more. And there is no value, or very minimal value, in doing compliance work, because compliance is just telling you what your tax is. And unfortunately, that doesn't help you grow. That doesn't help you change as a business. All that's doing is telling you, you need to give the tax man this much money. Good luck. See you next year.
And no one likes that conversation.
No, it doesn't work for anyone. It's horrible for us telling you. It's horrible for you trying to pay it.
Yeah. So you're trying to make it essentially it's a more positive experience, like you say, more like business, not business coaching, but more like just education around the finance side of things. Have you ever been involved with that kind of business coaching side? I know you've got a podcast that we talked about off air, which is the ups and downs of business ownership. Does that side interest you?
Yeah, so I would say almost our management account meetings are that exactly. We're holding people accountable. We are almost a business coach without saying we are. We're holding them accountable. We're telling them from a financial point of view what's going on, what they need to do. We set budgets, we set forecasts, and we're looking at all of the coaching side from there. We're giving advice from what we've had with other clients, but we're not necessarily looking at it. So I guess it's being a business coach from a financial background rather than a business coach from a sales background, for example, who would solely focus on the sales figures. So in our monthly or quarterly meetings, we are that accountability coach.
Yeah. And I imagine that, like you said, because you see 75 other businesses, you can start seeing trends in what's doing well, what's not doing well. And if this business is following this way of doing things, maybe they should look at another way, which may or may not be this. So you kind of been able to give people pointers on, different industries, whereas I always find that you don't know what you don't know. So we're in the events experience market. So we know a lot about what's going on in that area, but we don't know what's going on in finance. We don't know what's going on in digital marketing, all these sorts of areas. We don't know too much about it, essentially.
And I would say that's probably our biggest win, is knowing that, because what I found is actually one of the clients I was working with. So I went to his office, there was paperwork everywhere. It was a bit of a mess. And we put in a cloud software, we pulled him across. I was leaving the office and he said, I've binned all the paperwork. I've ordered 12 iPads for each member of staff. What do we do? I said, hang on, I'm turning the car around. We need to go through this. So I kind of went back and we set up a few procedures. But after talking to a few other clients, we were talking about 3D printers and me being me, it's a gadget, it's tech. It was like, oh my God. I started talking to him about 3D printers, and he actually kind of says that I was the reason that he put in 3D printers in the first place. But now it's a manufacturing company that they engineers, they build printers. He now 3D prints printers or parts of his printers, which has saved him an awful amount of money in cost. He was shipping it from abroad, which was costing all sorts of money. It was plastics, it was whatever it was that he was doing. He's 3D printing it overnight in the warehouse or the workshop downstairs, and it's going straight onto these, saving the money, looking great, and it's a much better product than what he was having before. So I guess these things are like, that's a prime example where I've taken from one industry, because I had a 3D printing company that I was working with and talking to somebody else. Another one is the same company, actually. We were looking at a Stream Deck. So I don't know if you know what a Stream Deck is. Streamers online.
We've used them, yeah.
Yeah, they have like 12 buttons that are pre-programmed to do certain things. And I mentioned to him, like, it's basically just a macro sat on your side of your desktop. So he's then built them into their work. So it's incredible now that when you go to their office, they've got these 3D printers, they've got these Stream Decks all next to their desk that can kind of hit a button, bang, it's done. It does that process, whatever it is. And only by pulling things from other industries have I been able to do that, because a manufacturer, you wouldn't expect to use a Stream Deck.
Yeah, no, definitely. And yeah, Stream Decks are incredibly useful. Really, really great to look into if you've got some ideas out there of how you can apply that in your business. You mentioned AI earlier, and obviously, with 3D printing and the way technology can change businesses. So our accountant has actually genuinely said to us that in 10 years' time, there may be no traditional accountants anymore. What's your thought process on how AI is going to change traditional accountant?
I'd say that's 10 is too far. 5 is coming, because we are already, so we're very fortunate. I've kind of got on with a lot of people in the industry, and we are probably right at the front of the technology. So we are using a software now that is almost doing all of the bookkeeping. So I think in 3 to 6 months' time, we will start to be able to replace bookkeepers as an industry, because the process will be so slick and it's so automated. Unfortunately, accountants have built the industry to be robotic. It's follow these steps to produce a set of accounts, and that will be gone. Like, if you're going to follow a set of steps like a robot, that can be automated. A robot will do that, and it will do it better, and it will do it overnight. It won't ask for pay rises. It won't have time off sick, and it won't give a headache that staff do, unfortunately. Not saying all staff do, but there's always staffing issues. So if it's already replacing things like that, what it doesn't do is it doesn't replace goals. And actually, you're looking to do this with your business, so we need to tweak things slightly to make sure that you can achieve this goal, whatever it is that you're trying to do, whether that's pay less tax, whether that's pay more tax, get a mortgage, get finance, however it is and however it needs to be structured. But AI will replace the data entry. And if it's doing the data entry perfectly, that flows right through to the end of year accounts, which follows a set rules, which means that it will be able to produce that. And as I say, we're already using software now that is able to produce 90% of the bookkeeping within seconds that is going to replace bookkeepers. And I can see that coming. We're already trialing it now. So give it 6 months. I think it will be ready.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with you. And also on the part of, the interpretation of the accounts is where the skill will be required. That will be, like you said, the data entry, the mass production of follow these steps is where AI is going to change business. And then it's going to be the next level, which is where I guess the real value comes in. It enables people to focus more on that side of things rather than doing the jobs that AI can now do for them. So you think less than 5 years, and that's it. So if we talk about some of the systems that people probably know, like Sage, Xero, for example, How are they adapting with AI? Have they got their own AIs coming, or are they just trying to carry on as normal and hope that nothing changes?
I think they're slowly building their own AI and they're trying to do things themselves. I don't know who's going to bring this accounting solution, because a lot of these systems, Sage and Xero, accountants don't actually use them for their end of year accounts. So although these are great bookkeeping tools and although these are great accounting tools for the business owner, they're not properly producing accounts yet. However, one of them will do it soon, or one software, or it'll be an add-on, or another company will do it. Because like with Xero, we kind of use Xero only, so I am slightly biased towards Xero. Sorry, QuickBooks and Sage and any of the others that
I'm on Xero too. That's
good. But we use bolt-ons, so we have probably 6 or 7 different softwares that we add on to the side of Xero, and I think it will be a bolt-on, or it will be someone like one of the banks that will actually then, because the banks have all that information already, that will then just kind of pull your account straight through and produce it from there.
All going to change, isn't it? It's literally all going to change.
Yeah, it's going to change drastically, and that's where I think we need to sit as a business coach or as business advisors, or from that financial background, and we need to make sure, because if you just give a business owner a profit and loss on the balance sheet, do they understand what they're looking at? And we are the storyteller to that.
Could you, and this may be an idea for yourselves, could you train other accountants, other accountancy practices, how to implement AI into their business as a business model?
There's a lot of people who have tried that in the industry. Yes, absolutely we could. Yes, as we're probably at the front, it might be worth us looking at doing, and I am talking to a few other accountants how to do it, what we've done, and how that works. So absolutely, it could be a thing.
Because you could put a webinar on, you could get some training days going on. You could be another revenue stream, couldn't it? Essentially, if you're like you said, if you're at the forefront, you've already implemented it, it's working, you're getting things on board, and this is an industry that doesn't move fast. If you're saying it's all going to change in 5 years, guaranteed, a bit like our accountant, he's saying 10 years, someone else will be saying 20 years. And my father-in-law was an accountant, and he remembers the day that it changed from paper only to going online, and that was a big day, like big day. They were very unhappy about it, and here we are, like not long after that, maybe 10 years later, and it's all changing again. So I wanted to move on to your podcast, David. So tell us a little bit about obviously your podcast, and obviously why you're running a podcast.
So I've always kind of found them quite interesting. I love learning what businesses are doing, how they do it. I guess it comes back to like that management account thing is, I want to learn more about your business. I want to learn more about what you're doing. And the easiest way to do that was to kind of produce a podcast. So it was, let's start this podcast, let's build it out, and let's have chats with as many business owners as we can. We can ask them all kinds of questions, because we also have this, I also got frustrated with social media actually at the time. There's this, everybody is doing well. If you go networking, how's it going? Yeah, it's all great. If you go social media, everyone's doing great. Everyone's winning awards. Everyone is smashing it. And I'm sat in our office thinking, shit, are we the only ones that are struggling here? Everyone seems to be smashing it at networking events. But then I'm looking, and some of them are my clients, and I'm like, their numbers aren't quite smashing it. So, what am I missing? And it was like, I wanted to build something that showed truly what a small business owner is like. The flashy holidays, the fast cars, the living that luxury lifestyle, as opposed to working that 60 hours a week, 70 hours a week, up at night, stressed because you can't afford payroll at the end of the month. And that there is so many downs that come with them ups. So it was almost trying to show that, yes, absolutely, they might go on a nice holiday, but they haven't been on one in 5 years. So the fact that they're going on this nice flashy holiday and they're posting about it is great. Go for it, do it, achieve it. And it was a way of kind of trying to prove, I guess, to myself that not everybody is in a perfect place at all times. So we've kind of built this podcast. We've invited loads of guests on. It's all in person. because there's like this. It's a lot easier to kind of read somebody in person as well. I quite like the feel of like that, and I guess it's very similar to yours. It's just interviewing business owners on what they've done and where they've been and how it's worked for them.
No, sounds great. I'm definitely going to have a listen, because that's one of the reasons that I set this podcast up, because I wanted to hear from real business owners, not just marketing their products, their lifestyle, how amazing everything is all the time, which is what you see, unfortunately, when you go through the feed on LinkedIn. And it's great to kind of see that it's not like that everywhere, that it is unicorns that you see going on these, amazing holidays, fast cars, barely working. Everything just works for them. Everything they do turns to gold. Doesn't happen very often, unfortunately. I'm sure it happens for a few, but it is genuinely a few. The rest of us are working a lot of hours, a lot of sweat, a lot of blood. And that's I think what's a really powerful kind of podcast to kind of open up that reality, especially to people that want to start a business. Because I don't know about you, but when I started this business, I must admit I was very naive to how hard it was. Maybe a good thing that I was naive to it, but it was very hard, and it's still hard now, and we've been going 12 years. And I think that's the reality, that it's always hard, and it helps to know that other people aren't just always succeeding.
So if you could go back, would you start that again?
The business?
Yeah.
I would say no. Not in the way I did start, not in the way I started it. Yeah. And there's probably a deeper reason behind that. But yeah, ultimately we've changed from how we started. But I think in the beginning you're just very into just getting money in. And that was my mentality probably for the first 5 years. And it was only after about 5 years that I started looking at kind of personal development and actually changing that mindset to not all money is good money.
Right.
If that makes sense.
We'll ask a lot more when you come on the podcast here.
Exactly, yeah. Well, I'll come on David's podcast, so we'll have a chat a bit more in depth about that then. Lovely. Well, David, it's been fantastic having you on. I've got 3 quick questions for you, if that's all right. So the first one is just the best business advice you've ever received.
Best business advice. I think it's been kind of come to me in a few ways. So my mum is in the Caribbean. She was talking about yachties. So, people who are working on a yacht that are serving these multimillionaires. And she said it's fascinating that these people, they have written down what cups of tea they like, sugar, milk, everything, every single thing that they like, they write it down quick. So what happens is next time they come on that boat, it's, I've got your orange juice, it's sat there, your cup of tea's on its way, and then we've got salmon sandwiches because that's what you want. And that feeling that you get when somebody knows you like that, or even if they don't know you, but they say, we've got all the things that you want and you like, that's how you impress someone. And I think that got reiterated to me when I watched Molly's Game. I don't know if you've seen that film.
Yeah.
But she kind of said in there, I think it was quoted from Maya Angelou, it's not what you give people, these multimillionaires, it's how you make them feel.
Yeah, that's good advice.
I quoted that really badly, but there is a quote out there.
I know exactly the film you're on about, and it's a great film. It really is. And it's the concept, isn't it? But behind the experience rather than the product.
Yeah. She asked her mum how she could impress these multimillionaires that had everything. And her mum said, it's not what you give them, it's how you make them feel. Yeah. So that's something that I focus on. Everything we do in our business, is experiential. It's like, how does it make you feel that walking into our office is different? It stands out. Everything is the smell, the touch, the taste, and that's our main focus.
No, it's very powerful. I think it makes a much bigger difference than people put it down to, essentially. This podcast is sponsored by Team Building Experiences. If you're planning a team building event, away day, or corporate event, then check out team-building-experiences.co.uk and state podcast 15 in the comments to receive 15% off your proposal. Very similar question, but in a slightly different way. What advice would you give to someone trying to start a business in 2024?
Find the right people to talk to, and don't be scared to ask everybody anything. There's so many people out there that can help you but you've got to ask them and you've got to talk to them. And I think I probably struggled the most because I didn't have the confidence to get up and talk in front of people or anything like that. Actually, the worst that can happen, they ignore you and you don't talk to them again.
Yeah, that's very true. I think if you're able to just ask people questions, and I do this a lot more than I'd ever done years ago. I generally just message people on LinkedIn that don't know me and ask them, are you available for a chat? If I've got a business idea in that industry.
Exactly that. We're all people. At the end of the day, even Elon Musk, he's a person. Like, don't get me wrong, it might be a harder way of getting to contact him, but he's still a person. Like, reach out to these people. Don't be scared.
Yeah, definitely. Last question. What podcasts have you listened to recently that have either inspired you or would you recommend someone to listen to?
So interestingly, I've been listening to this one a few times. So I quite like these. I listened to the Stephen Bartlett ones because I can't help it. He's probably one of the biggest ones on Spotify. And I really like a guy called Jay Shetty. Don't know if you've heard of him.
Yeah, he's good. Yeah, very good. I can't remember the name of the show, but we'll put it in the show notes for the listeners as well.
Yeah. I mean, he was on the Stephen Bartlett one.
Yeah. They're all starting to go on each other's now, aren't they? Have you noticed that Chris Williamson and they're all kind of doing the circuit, and it's they've got so much to say, haven't they? It's so intelligent and interesting at the same time. It's almost frustrating, isn't it? David, it's been fantastic having you on. If you could just tell people where they can find more information about Youtopia and also yourself.
To our website, utopia.co.uk or LinkedIn. We're on all social media channels, but I would say I'm on LinkedIn the most. So send me a message on there.
Fantastic. Well, David, thanks very much for coming on today.
Thank you very much for having me.
So, guys, if you enjoyed this podcast, if you do one thing for me, if you can like, follow, or subscribe to the channel on your podcast listening app, enables us to grow the show. Thank you.